there, you're watching Now 24 Nightly News with me, Madam Zidane. To the headlines. The Zionist occupation has intensified its assault on Gaza, killing at least 120 Palestinians since dawn and more than 60 in Khan Yunis. Hamas says the escalation comes in direct response to mediation efforts, while on Nakba Day, Palestinians reflect on the renewed brutality and arrogance of the occupation. Also, coming up in Morocco, widespread condemnation is mounted over the crackdown on anti-normalization activities. Human rights organizations are calling for mass protests in front of parliament, demanding an end to the normalization project and a halt to all forms of cooperation with the Zionist entity. And amid ongoing efforts to end the war in Ukraine, anticipation is building around the outcome of the Russia-Ukraine talks in Istanbul. The Russian delegation has confirmed Moscow's readiness to revive the negotiations, while President Zelensky has criticized the level of Russian representation of the talks, calling it an insult. Hello and welcome back to your nightly news. More than 120 Palestinians have been killed and others wounded, including women and children, in Israeli airstrikes targeting multiple areas across the Gaza Strip since early dawn today. Medical sources reported that the intensified bombing campaign by the Israeli Occupation Air Force since dawn has killed 120 Palestinians, most of them in Khan Yunis in the south. Also in the same context, 60 Palestinians were martyred in Israeli airstrikes targeting various locations in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza during the early hours of Thursday night. The occupation strikes targeted homes and tents sheltering displaced persons in addition to public service and health facilities, such as the European hospital, leaving 60 dead and dozens injured, with the death toll expected to rise. And Palestinian journalist Hassan Samour and several members of his family were killed in an Israeli airstrike on their home in the town of Beni Suhaila east of Khan Yunis at dawn today. This raises the number of journalists killed since the beginning of the genocide war on Gaza on October 7, 2023 to 216, according to official data. The previous victim was journalist Hassan Asleh, who was martyred on Tuesday in a targeted airstrike at Nasser Medical Complex, where he was receiving treatment for injuries sustained in a previous attack. The government media office in Gaza stated that the Israeli occupation is deliberately and systematically assassinating Palestinian journalists. In a statement released Thursday, the office confirmed that the number of martyred journalists has reached 216 since the start of the genocide war on Gaza, following the death of journalist Hassan Samour. The statement called on the International Federation of Journalists, the Federation of Arab Journalists, and all media organizations around the world to condemn these systematic crimes against Palestinian journalists and media workers in Gaza. Hamas said that while mediators exert intense efforts to restore the negotiation track, the Israeli occupation responds with military pressure on innocent civilians in a desperate attempt to impose its terms through violence. In its statement, the movement stressed that the occupation government's insistence on negotiating without halting its aggression and its messages of disregard for mediation efforts reveal the criminal mindset of this entity. Hamas added that the mindset sees ceasefires merely as tools to buy time and resume the war, and that Netanyahu wants a never-ending war with no regard for the fate of his captives. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres reiterated his call for an unconditional ceasefire in Gaza and unhindered humanitarian access to the Strip. In a meeting in Berlin with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Antonio Guterres called for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages, unhindered humanitarian access, and an immediate cessation of hostilities.
In relation to Gaza, I reiterate my call for an immediate and unconditional release of all hostages, unimpeded humanitarian access, and an immediate cessation of hostilities, allowing for an irreversible path towards a two-state solution.
The 77th anniversary of the Nakba comes amid a continued genocidal war in Gaza and ongoing aggression in the occupied West Bank, marking a legacy of displacement, land seizure, and rights violations that Palestinians still endure today. Usama Ayadi has the report.
Today marks 77 years since the Nakba, or the catastrophe, when over 700,000 Palestinians were violently uprooted from their homes in 1948. 77 years of exile, of statelessness, of a people fighting not just to live, but also to exist.
This is the key of the house that I left in Subarin, hoping to return, God willing. If we do not return, our grandchildren will.
And today in Gaza, the Nakba is not just a memory, it's happening again. Entire neighborhoods have vanished under bombs, families buried beneath the rubble, hospitals turned to ruins, food, water, electricity cut off, the most basic human needs also denied.
I swear we're not comfortable. I swear we do not sleep at night. We do not sleep at night from hunger and fear. What can we do, my dear? This is God's will. What can we do? What can we do? I had everything inside the house. It's all gone.
The death toll rises every day. Children, mothers, entire bloodlines erased in an instant. Gaza has become a graveyard, not only for the dead, but for justice. The world watches. Some speak, fewer act. As we remember the Nakba, Palestinians are once again fleeing their homes if they can. But this time, there are no roads out, no safe haven, nowhere left to run.
When we left our pre-94-8 hometown in Jaffa during the Nakba, we left the hometown and came to Gaza. We found a lot of food and drink. Everything was available to us. We would plant wheat and barley. We would grind and eat. But this war is destruction. It did not leave a human or anything.
What name do we give the suffering that lasts generations? What do we call it when the people are crushed not just by war, but by silence? 77 years since the Nakba, and still Palestine bleeds.
And in Morocco, student and human rights organizations denounced the Makhzen's use of violence and force within the kingdom's universities to block peaceful activities in support of Palestine and against all normalization relations. Student and human rights organizations emphasize that this ban coincides with the Makhzen regime's continued process of academic normalization by opening its universities to dubious partnerships with the Zionist entity under the guise of academic cooperation. Also, activists in Morocco warned of the dangers posed by Zionist influence on the country's social fabric amid efforts by normalization proponents to infiltrate the consciousness of the younger generation in ways that serve Israeli interests. At a solidarity festival organized by the Youth of Justice and Spirituality under the slogan "For the Homeland," with Palestine and against Zionist infiltration, participants stressed the ongoing threat of Zionist expansion in the region. They called for unified efforts to confront these dangers, including using boycotts as a strategic weapon to inflict maximum harm on the Israeli entity. And Moroccan human rights groups called for protest rallies in front of parliament to demand an end to normalization and urge the government to hold all dealings with the Israeli entity. In a statement, the National Action Group for Palestine urged the government to boycott all forms of cooperation with Israel and to stop normalization policies, which they said violate the dignity of the Moroccan people. The group called for a protest to be held Friday in front of the parliament in Rabat, reaffirming their unwavering support for the Palestinian people in the face of the ongoing brutal genocide. Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf arrived in the Iraqi capital Baghdad on behalf of President Abdelmajid Tebboune to participate in the 34th regular session of the Arab League Council at the summit level, as well as the 5th Arab Economic and Development Summit, both scheduled for May 17, 2025. A statement from the Algerian Foreign Ministry indicated that the latest developments in the Palestinian issue are expected to top the summit's agenda in light of Israel's continued brutal aggression against the Palestinian people. Discussions will also cover current political situations in the Arab world and explore ways to enhance joint Arab action and strengthen the multilateral Arab work system. The developmental summit will address shared economic and social challenges facing Arab countries and explore collective measures to strengthen food, water, and energy security, in addition to enhancing inter-Arab trade with the framework of the Greater Arab Free Trade Area. The minister delegate to the Algerian Minister of Defense and Chief of Staff of the Armies, General Saïd Chengriha, emphasized the role of the Higher War School in contributing to the preparatory efforts of the armed forces. The Chief of Staff of the Algerian Army, while presiding over the 18th session of the Steering Council of the Higher War School, stressed the importance of the institution's role in continuously adapting to new developments in a way that ensures effective confrontation of all current and future challenges.
We are counting heavily on the Higher War School to contribute to this preparatory effort for the armed forces by formulating a new theoretical approach and developing innovative practical visions on ways to continuously adapt to emerging developments. This will ensure effective confrontation of all current and future challenges and preserve our country's status as a regional power that is always ready to face any threat to its sovereignty, stability, and vital interests.
In the same context, Army General Saïd Chengriha emphasized that combat readiness and continuous training of the individual soldier are the essential keys to mastering weapons and their systems. Let's take a listen.
We have always believed that combat readiness and continuous training of the soldiers are the key to mastering weapons and their systems, and to making the most of them. A fighter who possesses advanced equipment but lacks practical experience in using it may find himself unable to deal with field challenges. For this reason, the People's National Army places great emphasis on combat preparation by conducting intensive training that includes realistic scenario simulations, and by ensuring that personnel develop the ability to respond quickly to sudden changes and emerging situations. This approach strengthens their capacity to use their resources efficiently and accurately.
And in Libya, the Presidential Council issued a decree ordering a complete ceasefire in all areas, with all military units required to immediately return to their bases unconditionally. In a statement on Thursday, the Council said that the General Staff of the Libyan Army would monitor the implementation of the ceasefire and report any violations and identify those responsible. The decree also establishes a committee headed by the Chief of Staff and comprising several senior military leaders tasked with reviewing military deployments, issuing necessary recommendations, and taking measures to assist affected individuals and address their conditions. Algeria has renewed its call for Libyans to adopt dialogue as the only path to resolving internal disputes amid ongoing clashes in the country. Speaking at a UN Security Council session on the situation in Libya, Toufiq al-Qudri, member of Algeria's permanent mission to the UN, stressed the need to act with a sense of responsibility and prioritize the interests of the Libyan people. He reiterated Algeria's appeal for unity among Libyan factions, urging them to reject division and fragmentation.
We meet today as we follow with deep concern on the evolving situation in Libya, following the renewed armed clashes in the capital Tripoli, which have resulted in casualties and the loss of the resources of this brotherly country. From this council, Algeria reiterates its sincere call to all Libyan brothers to prioritize dialogue as the only solution to resolve disputes. My country reaffirms that Libya needs now more than ever to unite all its people away from the logic of division and support the political process under the auspices of the United Nations in order to reach the long-awaited solution.
The Algerian diplomat Toufiq al called for the withdrawal of all foreign forces and armed fighters from Libya. He also stressed the importance of coordination and cooperation between the International Criminal Court and Libyan authorities to ensure justice and accountability.
تذكر الجزائر بواجبنا كمجتمع دولي.
Algeria recalls our duty as an international community to support Libya in its escape from the cycle of violence, beginning with the immediate and unconditional withdrawal of all foreign forces, foreign fighters, and mercenaries. Libya is not a wrestling ring, but rather a country with deep roots in history. It possesses the necessary capabilities if the conditions for security and peace are met to become a factor of balance and stability not only in the North African region, but also in the Mediterranean basin and in the entire African continent.
A Russian delegation arrived in Turkey on Thursday morning to participate in peace talks with Ukraine, marking the first such meeting between the two countries since the spring of 2022. According to the Kremlin, the delegation includes presidential advisor Vladimir Medinsky, Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Galutsin, and Deputy Minister of Defense Alexander Fomin. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan reaffirmed his country's full readiness to host the talks in pursuit of a just and lasting peace. The Russian Foreign Ministry confirmed that the Russian side is ready for serious negotiations with Ukraine. The spokesperson for the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, stated that the main goal of the negotiations in Istanbul is to eliminate the root causes of the conflict and to establish a lasting and long-term peace, according to her.
The Russian president affirmed that the goal of these talks is to eliminate the root causes of the conflict and to achieve a lasting and sustainable peace. As he has repeatedly stated before, the Russian side is ready to engage in serious negotiations. The Russian delegation has arrived in Istanbul and is prepared to engage in serious work.
The head of the Russian delegation in Istanbul talks, Vladimir Medinsky, announced that the Russian delegation is ready to resume the negotiation process that was halted in 2022 and to discuss any possible settlements during the negotiations. In press statements, Medinsky confirmed the Russian delegation's openness to consider and study any potential settlements, adding that the goal of the direct negotiations proposed by President Putin is to remove the root causes of the conflict and achieve a long-lasting and sustainable peace.
We consider these negotiations a continuation of the peace process in Istanbul, which was unfortunately halted by the Ukrainian side 3 years ago. The Russian delegation has a constructive vision aimed at finding possible solutions and common ground. The goal of direct negotiations with the Ukrainian side is to establish lasting peace sooner or later and to eliminate the root causes of the conflict.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky voiced frustration over the absence of his Russian counterpart from the talks hosted in Istanbul. The Ukrainian leader told a press conference in Ankara that if Moscow failed to show any willingness to engage in the ceasefire talks, then other nations should put more political and economic pressure on Russia and impose further sanctions.
Russia does not feel that it needs to end the war, which means there is not enough political, economic, and other pressure on the Russian Federation. And so we ask, if there is no ceasefire, if there are no serious decisions, if there are no bilateral meetings, we ask for appropriate sanctions that will be a stimulus for faster ending of the war.
And Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan expressed his hope that the peace negotiations in Istanbul between Russia and Ukraine would open a new page in relations between the two countries. In his speech during the informal meeting of NATO foreign ministers in Turkish city of Antalya, Fidan said that there is a new opportunity to achieve peace between Russia and Ukraine, stressing that Turkey has always supported the diplomatic process to peace in Ukraine. US President Donald Trump said he does not expect any progress in efforts to end the war in Ukraine until he meets Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump had previously expressed his willingness to participate in a possible meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Istanbul if he saw an opportunity to make progress toward ending the war between the two countries.
I'm not disappointed. What would I be disappointed? We just took in $4 trillion, and he says, are you disappointed about a delegation? I know nothing about a delegation. I haven't even checked. Look, nothing's going to happen until Putin and I get together, okay? And obviously he wasn't going to go. He was going to go, but he thought I was going to go. He wasn't going if I wasn't there. And I don't believe anything's going to happen, whether you like it or not, until he and I get together. But we're going to have to get it solved because too many people are dying. Thank you. You're going to land right now. Thank you.
Sudan's electricity company announced that 2 power stations in Omdurman, west of Khartoum, were attacked by drones launched by the Rapid Support Forces RSF, causing fires and a power outage across the capital. In a statement, the company said RSF drones targeted the Mirqiyat substation and another distribution station in Omdurman. Civil defense teams are working intensively to extinguish the fires, and a technical assessment will be conducted to evaluate the damage and also take necessary remedial measures. The transitional Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara called the lifting of sanctions following US President Donald Trump's decision a historic and courageous move. In a televised speech, he said the decision eased the suffering of Syrians and laid the groundwork for regional stability. He confirmed Syria's commitment to improving the investment climate and providing facilities to enable Syrian and foreign capital to aid reconstruction. He also invited investors worldwide to seize the available opportunities in various sectors across Syria.
استجاب الرئيس ترامب مشكورا.
President Trump graciously responded to this goodwill, and his decision to lift the sanctions was a historic and courageous move that alleviated the suffering of the people, supported their recovery, and laid the foundations for the stability in the region. We affirm that Syria is committed to enhancing the investment climate, developing economic legislation, and providing the necessary facilities to enable both national and foreign capital to actively contribute to reconstruction and comprehensive development. We welcome all investors from our nation, both inside and abroad, as well as our Arab brothers, Turkish neighbors, and friends around the world. We invite them to take advantage of the opportunities available across various sectors as Syria embarks with determination toward progress, prosperity, knowledge, and hard work.
US President Donald Trump has said that the United States is very close to reaching a nuclear agreement with Iran. Speaking at a press conference in Qatar, Trump stressed that Iran must never acquire a nuclear weapon, adding that Washington is engaged in what he described as very serious negotiations with Tehran to achieve lasting peace.
And we're going to give Syria. I think we're getting close to maybe doing a deal without having to do this. There's 2 steps. There's a very, very nice step, and there's a violent step.
Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai announced that political directors from the foreign ministries of Iran and the 3 European signatories to the nuclear deal would meet in Istanbul on Friday. Baghai said the meeting will include continued consultations with Germany, the UK, and France, as well as indirect talks between Iran and the US. This follows 3 previous rounds of discussions between Iran and the European trio regarding the nuclear fire. Germany's Finance Minister Lars Klingbeil told the Bundestag on Thursday that European Union countries must respond to US tariffs with unity and determination. Klingbeil said that Germany expects the European Commission and Washington to reach a mutually satisfactory solution that protects the economic interests of both the EU and the US. However, he stressed that the Commission is prepared to act if negotiations fail.
Auf die Zölle der USA.
As the European Union, we must respond to US tariffs with unity and determination. We expect the negotiations being conducted by the Commission to lead to a positive outcome. But let me state very clearly here, we are prepared in case they do not succeed.
Wenn das nicht gelingt.
And finally, the Postal and Electronic Communications Regulatory Authority launched an awareness campaign in Algeria on the importance of identifying mobile phone subscribers. The agency, which is under the Algerian Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications, clarified in a statement that SIM cards are for the personal and exclusive use of their legal holders and must not be used by others. It warned of the serious consequences of misuse, including transferring SIM cards outside official sales channels. The authority urged users to promptly report any lost or stolen SIM cards to the relevant authorities to avoid any potential harm from unauthorized use. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for tonight's program. Thanks for watching and have a great night.